Welcome to Open the Book, and today's story is about a man called Abraham who learnt to trust God. And as usual, we've got some actions that we would love you to join in with when you hear particular words. So, when you hear the word Abraham, I want you to do a salute. When you hear the word God, say, wow. When you hear the word stars, going to make twinkling stars. When you hear the word milk, I want you to moo like a cow. Moo. When you hear the word honey, buzz like a bee. Bzz. When you hear the word children, just do a little dance, because children are brilliant at dancing. When you hear the word laughed, it's a big ho, ho, ho. Right, let's open the book. Abraham was rich. He had lots of servants to do work for him. He had lots of camels and sheep. And he lived with his wife in a very nice place called Haran. One day, God, wow, spoke to Abraham.
I want you to leave Haran because I have a better place for you to live in.
Now, Abraham might have said something like where or how far or thank you very much, but I'm quite happy here. But he didn't. In fact, he said nothing at all. He just gathered up his wife and his servants and his camels and his sheep and went where God, wow, led him. Why? Because Abraham trusted God. Wow. It was as simple as that. Canaan was the name of the place where God, wow, led Abraham. A land flowing with milk, moo, and honey, bzz, is what some people called it. A land where there were many cows and goats and bees there and plenty of flowers and grass for the animals. It was altogether a pretty place, even nicer than Haran. And Abraham liked it very much. The only problem was that Abraham had no children. And besides that, he and his wife Sarah were both very old. Grandpa and grandma old, and maybe even older than that. But Abraham trusted God. Wow. So one night, God, wow, said to him,
Abraham, look up. Do you see the stars? One day, you will have so many children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren that counting the stars will be an easy job compared with counting them. Now, Abraham, look down. Do you see the ground? One day, there will be more members of your family than there are bits of earth on that ground.
what did Abraham do? He chuckled. That's what. He giggled. He chortled. He laughed. Ho, ho, ho.
Me and my wife have children.
He cackled.
We're much too old for that.
But God, wow, wasn't joking.
You will indeed have a son, and through your family I will do something wonderful for the world.
So Abraham trusted God. Wow. And it wasn't long before God, wow, sent 3 messengers to visit him. Abraham was very kind to them. He washed their feet, which was the polite thing to do in those days. Then he served them fresh baked bread and a creamy beef stew. It was delicious. And as the visitors were patting their tummies and wiping their mouths, they said,
We will be back next year, and when we return, Sarah will give birth to a son.
Someone giggled. Someone chortled. Someone laughed. Ho, ho, ho. But it wasn't Abraham. This time it was Sarah, who had been listening in the tent nearby. And the next year, when God's wow promise came true and the baby was born, there was laughter. Ho, 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 again. So much laughter. Ho, ho, ho. In fact, that laughter, ho, 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 is what they decided to call their son, for that is what the name Isaac means. So God's promise to his friend Abraham came true. He did have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and Abraham was glad that he trusted God. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and think of a good friend who you can trust. Now I'm going to say a prayer, and if you want to make it your own, say Amen at the end. Dear God, thank you for friends we can laugh with and friends we can trust. Thank you that Abraham trusted you and was called a friend of God. Help us to understand what it means to trust you and be a friend of God too. Amen.
Amen.
God knew Abraham and Sarah and all about their future as well. And there's someone else in the story, isn't there, that God knew about, even before he was born. Do you remember his name? Isaac. A name that means laughter. How beautiful is that? And this story is really precious to both Jews and Christians because it teaches us that God knows all about us from even before we're born, that he watches over us as we grow in our mummy's tummies and our womb, right up to when we're adults and grown-ups. God is there, helping to create us. Amazing. In fact, there's a couple of Bible verses that say just this. The first one is from Psalm 139. When my bones were being formed, carefully put together in my mother's womb, when I was growing there in secret, you knew that I was there. Awesome. And then in Isaiah chapter 46, verse 4, God is talking to his friend Isaiah, and he says this: even to your old age and grey hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. I have made you and I will carry you. I will sustain you and I will rescue you. What a beautiful promise of God. I wonder, think for a moment, who is the youngest person that you know at the moment? You might even want to tell someone. Who's the youngest person? And I wonder, who is the oldest person that you know at the moment? Who is the oldest person that you know at the moment? Now, I'm sure if you look around the room, you'll see that we look so different. Before I had a baby, I really thought that all babies look the same. And when I did have my babies, I realised that they don't look the same at all. In fact, I'm an identical twin. And even with me and my sister, we all have different fingerprints. Have a look at your fingers. Can you see the patterns on each finger? Isn't it amazing? Nobody else has the same fingerprint as you. Wow. We don't just look different, we've got different gifts and talents and different interests. Some people are really interested in football. Anyone out there? What about rugby? What about music? Or movies? Or what about playing games? We're all different. We all have different things that we love, and that is a wonderful and amazing thing, that God has created so much variety in us. Christians believe that no matter how old we are, whether we're tiny or really old, no matter what our different interests are or how good we are at things, God made us amazingly. And He has got plans for us, just like He'd had plans for Abraham and for Sarah and for Isaac. Sometimes people say unkind things to us. Maybe we get into arguments and they say mean things. And sometimes we stop believing that we're made amazing, and we start to believe that we're a bit rubbish. Sometimes we mess up, we do things wrong, and it makes us feel really rubbish. But you know, the truth is that we are still incredible. We're amazing. We can do things that no animal or plant can do because we're human beings and wonderfully made. I think we might need to be reminded of this, particularly if we've had a bad week and things have gone wrong. So I've got a couple of friends who just are going to remind us of this truth, that God thinks we're great. Here they go. God
says,
I am
wonderfully
made.
God's
masterpiece.
God
says
I
am
wonderfully.
made
God's
masterpiece.
Bravo.
God
says
All right.
God
says
I am
wonderfully
made
God's
masterpiece. So let's go through this week being amazed by ourselves and by everybody else that we meet. And I have a prayer here, and if you want to make it your own, join in with the Amen at the end. Creator God, you have made so many amazing things. Help me to remember that I am one of them, and help me to show other people that they are amazing too. Amen.
Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. He is higher than a skyscraper. He's deeper than a submarine. He is wider than the universe and beyond my wildest dreams. And He's known me and He's loved me since before the world began. How wonderful to be a part of God's amazing plan. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. He is higher than a skyscraper. He's deeper than a submarine. He's wider than the universe and beyond my wildest dreams. And He's known me and He's loved me since before the world began. How wonderful to be a part of God's amazing plan. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. He holds us in His hands. He holds us in His hands. And He holds us in His hands.